Good evening. I would like to call the May 10th, 2022, 6 p.m. Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board meeting to order. We will have the welcome and roll call.
Christopher Caldwell,
Present.
Luis Garcia, Curtis Gardner,
Here.
Oliver Howell,
Here.
Barb Miller, Chair Payne,
Here?
Susan Stapleton,
Here.
Larry Tolbert.
Present.
Thank you for being here tonight, in person as well as via the city's live streaming platforms. Masks are no longer required in City Hall and the City Commission chambers. The disinfectant wipes located at the podium are available for use by those commenting in person. In addition, attendees should continue to practice social distancing. Your cooperation and compliance with these rules are appreciated. Public comments will be accepted during the times as indicated on today's meeting agenda. Community members that wish to provide public comments over the phone can call 888-382-9556 during the citizen comments period. They will enter a queue and will be prompted to offer their comments in turn. Callers will be commenting to the board live and will no longer be able to leave a recorded message.
Thank you. In your packets for tonight's meeting, you had the minutes from the March 8th meeting and had an opportunity to review the same. Are there any changes or additions or edits to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve and adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved in second that we adopt the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are adopted. Next, we will hear from Assistant Chief Green regarding the PCR report.
Good evening. Chairman, Vice Chairman, board members, Director Dusick, in this wonderful May evening that we have. I just want to give you an update where we are on the PCR complaints you have. In front of you, the overall number, and also is on our transparent page. But I want to bring out just a couple of things that is that we're looking into now regarding our transparency page. We have, as of today, as of the end of April, we have 26 complaints that have been filed this year from January to the end of April, which is interesting because overall last year in 2021, we had 31 complaints. The interesting thing also is that of these complaints that was filed between now and the end of April, 9 of those complaints that we received occurred in 2016, 2018, few in 2020, and 2021. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that, the complaints. So we take all complaints, of course, but we're looking at complaints even that occurred back there. So as of right now, as of the end of April, we had 26 complaints total, and overall 31 from last year. So our numbers are ticking up higher. From the professional standards point of view, we wanted to make sure nothing was, we start reviewing all the complaints to make sure why was this trend. We can't answer why the trend has increased, but we're carefully monitoring everything. But the rest of the information you have before you, there is an update. All the cases in January are now closed. It may not reflect that in your report. I will find the findings because the citizens who filed the complaint, they should be receiving their letters, so we just closed them out this week, but the rest of the other cases are still pending, and it has a lot to do with the increase of cases that we have. With that, Chairman, I am open to answer any questions that you may have about the report.
Questions, members? Assistant Chief Green, complaints were received in 2016, 2018, and 2021, which...
And 2022, sir.
And 2022. But going back to 2016, 2018, 2021, that may have increased the number of overall complaints as compared to 31 a year ago, correct?
That is correct.
Am I correct in that?
That is correct, sir.
What kind of difficulty do you have in investigating and coming to decisions on those complaints that happened 6 years ago? Or 4
Thank
years?
you. Yeah, great question. When we go back to those cases, one, that it depends on the case. If a case went to, if it's a use of force case, if it was a case that went to court, most likely the videos would have been saved during that time. But if there were not a complaint of rudeness or unprofessionalism, we would not have the video for back in 2016 because the policy, we wouldn't keep it that long. So we would have to go back and interview the officers involved in more detail to see if there's any witness. We wouldn't even have other videos if there's other cases that's involved. So that becomes a challenge that we have to just gather all the information that we may not have more available during that year. So that's one of the biggest concerns that, well, I shouldn't say concerns, one of the things that we requires additional resources from us, or more time, let me be more specific, more time in conducting the interview. Also, we have to also ask the officer if it's a complaint and the citizen has said, the officer said or did something and it happened in 2016, we have to also ask the officer, do you recall that in 2016? So those are some of the things that we look at when the cases are older. But we do welcome and we will investigate all complaints.
Now, you don't save that information if it's not a case that goes to court. If the case, in fact, goes to court, then you store that information.
Correct.
And you store it for a certain number of years?
4 years.
4 years you
Yep.
store that information. Am I accurate in saying that that has changed? Because I think the city has gone to iCloud storage now, and you have the capability of storing cases ad infinitum. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, we're looking at storing more in the cloud to get more space. I don't think, and I'm pausing right here, and I have to confirm that, I'm not sure if we, and I have to check with our service division, if we sign off on a particular contract to go to iCloud. I would just have to double check that information for you.
Yes, that's very, very important, that the citizens have that information, which will allow them to have access to that information beyond the 4 years. The other concern about going back and not having iCloud storage is, and currently, the cost. If a citizen wants to get that information, the information that you have, that our police officers have, what's the cost to access that data?
Yeah, so it depends on how much they're looking at, how many videos they're looking at, and the cost for us to reproduce it. So it varies for each time someone requests, and I think what you're referring to is a freedom of information request, such as a copy of a video, if I understand that correctly.
Or your body-worn cameras, or all that.
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount per hour because it depends if there's a scene, let's say a particular incident that may have occurred, it might be 3 or 4 or 5 officers there that all have their video cameras on. So then we would give a quote on what the cost is to do all of it because we have to designate a person to recover it. So I know time-wise, to do 1 hour of videoing, to record it, it takes us 2 hours to do it, only because we have to redact everything according to the state of Michigan and other FOIA requests to protect certain identities, such as medical and lien information and everything. But I don't know it depends on the cost. I can give you the specific costs per hour. If I'm not mistaken, is, well, I don't want to quote myself because I may be misquoting
Thank you.
Records Division on that.
Now, are those costs levied by our police department? Are they levied by the city manager's office? Are they,
It is-
who levies those costs to the students?
Yeah, it's levied towards the department when we have to pull someone designated just to make those copies of it. And also, if I'm not mistaken, and those are the specifics that the Record Division have, I have to check and see if it's any, where the additional costs come from. I apologize, I don't know that specific.
Do you know who the check is made out to
When it's done,
when it's done?
I believe the city of Kalamazoo.
The Kalamazoo. Now, and you may or may not be able to answer this question, but it's
Sure.
one that our citizens ask me, so I'll ask you. Our citizens pay taxes in the city that support KDPS and city government. And the systems and processes that you use are taken out of those tax dollars. The question I've been asked is, why do I have to pay again for copies of materials that I've already financed?
Yeah. So there are procedures in place for that cost, and again, I don't know exactly the different layers, so I can come back and give you a full report at the next meeting of how, what cities involved, city's attorney's office involved. I know it requires quite a bit of resources from us to film it, I mean, to make the copy, but I can get that to you next time around.
There may be a very simple answer.
Sure,
And
yeah.
I don't mean to badger, I don't.
No, not at all.
That's not my intent at all. But I think it's a legitimate question that some of our citizens are asking.
Sure.
And I think they deserve an answer, a candid answer on that
Yep.
question. So thank you very much. Any other questions on the PCR reports? Okay. Next on our agenda item, we have the.
Sir, may I make one more comment, please?
Absolutely.
On a side note, we're going through a little change in the Office of Professional Standards, so we have some promotions that occurred. Captain Giles, who is our inspector, is moving over to the Office of Community Outreach. And next month, if schedule permits, we will introduce you to the new inspector, Inspector Charles Mason, or Chuck Mason, and he will be taken over as Inspector of Internal Affairs. He was promoted also to the rank of lieutenant. So I just wanted to let you know the changes that's occurring in our division.
The other question I have while
Sure.
you're here that probably goes outside of the PCR report, but I appreciate the opportunities to have a conversation with you, Assistant Chief Green.
Thank you.
We know that there are certain characteristics that negatively impact our officers. And I think you have a social worker, if I'm not mistaken, that's assigned to your office.
That is correct.
And I have provided some data and information and research to the board that speaks specifically to 3 factors that contribute to the decision-making process that our officers have, and that information has also been provided to your social work, your civilian social worker. And the 3 factors, psychological factors across the board, are sleep deprivation, fatigue, and professional vilification.
Yes.
Now, when you control for profession, those 3 factors are consistent no matter what job you have. And so my question is, are we going to look at any kind of changes in policies and practices that will reduce those 3 factors with our officers, knowing that the research tells us that these are problems that impact decision-making at key moments in service delivery?
Right, correct. And you bring up an excellent point that not only our department, but several departments across the nation is looking into this particular matter, and we call this wellness, officer wellness, whether it's sleeping or in taking care of, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of but thank you, back in the badge, we just hired another group that advances or assists officers in their wellness and provide education. And not only that, Chairman, I would even go a step further in this research. Not only dealing with officers, but how does it affect family and their children? And that's why we're really excited by this new program. And so we are, as an administration, as a department, we're looking closely into how do we even support our officers more when it comes to wellness. And those 3 areas and additional couple more areas are being extensively looked into.
I simply want to thank you and the department, the chief, for looking into those advanced techniques that I think are going to serve our community well and keeping us ahead of some of the incidents that have occurred in cities across the nation. And we have to do that and not sit back. We have to be aggressive in that approach, and I'm so thankful that you're being aggressive in that approach and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
And I thank you for everyone's support, and especially those articles. Kelsey Harness, she shared that information, that she was so excited that you sent that information, so thank you.
And your officers who were with me at the houseless site did an excellent job.
Thank you. I will pass that word on to them. Hires? Yeah, we didn't hire any in this group, unfortunately. And that's something that will, maybe in a future date. We made it through the process, and then at the last end I have to be careful how I say this because of confidentiality, but they didn't finish the last part. So we were not able to hire the last few candidates that was in the process, which is extremely disappointing as we look through how do we continue to hire, and especially locally. Maybe that's something we can do in the future, that we're talking of other groups of how do we improve our hiring. It's a nationwide problem. It's not only locally, how do we get people to really step back into this profession? And we're, one side note, as we even brought someone assigned to the Office of Professional Standards who's responsible for recruiting and retention, to assign as a specific sergeant to look at the best recruiting practices throughout the nation to figure out how do we implement that, because we know that in the future that our department is going to be significantly lower in numbers only because of the retirements that we're having coming along. So you brought up an excellent point, Director Gardner, that we have to figure out how do we do this recruiting, and we have a person that's specifically assigned that has to do a full report about what are the best practices and how are we going to do this better, whether it's locally or period, I would argue.
Thank you, Assistant Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is the review of the activity tracker. Updates, please.
Thank you, Chair Payne. Went through the activity tracker and made some updates, made some changes, and I would let you speak to any issues that you see outstanding. If I go through the list, conduct the citizen survey, the subcommittee, we need to establish these subcommittees, and we need to take action immediately. So I will be reaching out to you, Chair Payne, and we need to nominate who is on some of these subcommittees. Investigative side, the independent review of policies and procedures. We need the subcommittee. Community awareness and access, develop partnerships for satellite locations, connecting resources. Again, that will tie into the citizen survey. And then host community forums, informational, listening sessions. So that subcommittee is established. So we will meet to discuss the developing partnerships. We have had a conversation with the Defender's Office That was very positive. And the seed scrap liaison, which is myself, and Patricia Vargas as the recording secretary, are going to move forward with that conversation. In oversight, to receive the monthly use of force reports, that is ongoing and is happening and is on schedule. Review of the quarterly benchmark analysis report. That update will be given at the September 13th, 2022 meeting. Review implementations report of all OIR report recommendations. That is on schedule. The creation of an OIR report accountability subcommittee has been established, and to my knowledge, that is on schedule as well. Under resources, we had recruit intern to support the board. The 2022 budget does not support a paid intern position for C-SCRAB. I will revisit that in the 2023 budget. And under other is board retreat, and Mr. Caldwell has agreed to work with me on a topic, a date, and a time to have the board retreat. Provide data from traffic stop study and report of implementation of recommendations. That is on schedule. KDPS traffic stop study platform will incorporate live information and will be data-driven. KDPS will provide updates as soon as they are available. And the last item on our activity tracker is prepare the 2021 C-SCRAB annual report. I will be working with Patricia Vargas, and we will have a draft available to you at the end of January of 2023.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Dusick. Over the past 6 years, 7 years, this board has transformed from a board strictly focused on appeals and the appeal process. That was at the center of everything that this board did, singularly looking at appeals. Since that time, and there were no subcommittees. There were no other assignments for board members. And since that time, as a part of the city's vision, we have been granted other responsibilities. We have the responsibility to review policies and processes and procedures and make recommendations to the city manager. We have the ability to take complaints on our own and turn those into the Office of Professional Standards. We have the ability to ask for independent investigations and make recommendations to the city manager based upon that. And the list goes on. As the goal was to move this board from strictly a board that reviews and recommends to a board that has some responsibilities akin to an oversight board, moving in that direction but not going all the way. At that point in time, I was concerned about the resources assigned to the board because the resources that we had then when we focused on appeals are essentially the same resources we have now with all of these expanded responsibilities and activities. When you were recruited to serve on the board, I don't know if you were told that there's more to this than a 1 hour a month meeting. There is. Now you have to engage in subcommittees and other efforts and other work. And I say that because I've been trying to look for efficiencies and to take advantage of all the talent here sitting on this board and to utilize that talent in a way that it supports our mission to represent citizens of this community. With that said, here are the changes that we're making in the activity tracker. The structural change, conduct citizen survey, Payne and Howe. That survey is, responsibilities are going to be folded into the investigative independent review and policies and procedures process. So those are combined. And the reason for that is because Vice Chair Howell and myself served on the subcommittee that went through the search process and hired OIR. So I think between the two of us, we can make a contribution to that effort. If you look at these two assignments carefully, as we evaluate with an independent review of our policies and procedures, a survey may be necessary to do that. And so it makes sense, to me at least, that we roll those two things together. And so now on that committee, you will have those two functions and Vice Chair Howell and myself. Moving on. Community awareness and access. Develop partnerships for satellite locations connecting resources. Connecting resources and satellite locations are vastly different from informational listening sessions. Those two things aren't necessarily congruent. But I've worked with the Defender's Office for months in establishing a framework that would allow the Defender's Office to train and educate all of their attorneys on the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board process. And those attorneys, when trained, will make this resource available to their indigent clients. Executive Director Hilgert, Attorney Hilgert, has already agreed to do that. Also, he has agreed to provide links to the wraparound services, which are also located in the Kalamazoo Defender's Office, which would allow those clients to access, either electronically or otherwise, this resource that's available to our citizens. And so those two functions are being folded together. And that will consist of Mr. Gardner, Mr. Garcia, and myself. Oversight. Creation of OIR Report Accountability Subcommittee. I was pleased to hear that there's been some progress made on that. I was not aware of that. But in the meantime, I have received permission from Mrs. Stapleton and Ms. Miller to add them to this subcommittee. Two very talented individuals, outstanding skill sets, and I'm sure that will be an asset for the community working with the City Commission. And so that subcommittee will consist of Ms. Stapleton, Ms. Miller, and myself. Moving on. After much conversation and arm twisting, Mr. Tolbert has agreed to oversee the implementation of the recommendations developed from the KDPS traffic stop study. And so it has here non-applicable, but I think that it's very applicable to the board because the board has a responsibility to view this traffic stop, the traffic stop results through the lens of the citizens. And without that involvement by the board, what you have is the lens, I think, of, it will be viewed as the lens of our administration and police department. And so Mr. Tolbert will be working with Ms. Dusick as a framework for that involvement is developed. The annual report. Again, I will be working with Ms. Dusick on that because it is very important that everyone understand that this is the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board annual report. It is reflective of the work that we've done and successfully, in I would hope most instances, for the citizens of Kalamazoo. And I would hope that we would be able to produce that report in a timely fashion, because we have not produced a report for the citizens of Kalamazoo from this board since its inception. And so, by the board. And so it is important that we do so in a timely fashion. And so I will be working with Ms. Dusick to accomplish that goal. I think our citizens are, I do not want our citizens to get the impression that it's delay, and it goes away. No, I do not want that impression. We have work to do, and we are going to do the work. The other thing that I am requesting that there be funds set aside to send Mr. Caldwell to a Nicole conference relative to training. And Nicole is the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. It's important that we receive training on our local police department policies and procedures, but it's also important that we have training and have a look at how boards such as ours and other boards are functioning in other locations and at the national level. And those conferences, those Nicole conferences, will provide Mr. Caldwell with that information. And it will impact the training that this board receives. Those are my comments on the activity tracker. Any comments from the board? Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a comment. And my comment would be on the review and appeals hearing, and try to explain just a little bit about our duties as a Citizen Public Safety Review and Appeals Board. Our duties are to, after we review all of the facts on both sides, is to make a recommendation to the city manager. After that recommendation is made, it is up to the city manager to agree or disagree with our recommendations. He can accept or reject our recommendations. And that is the power of the Citizen Public Safety and Review Board. And it's only to make a recommendation to the city manager.
Thank you for those comments. I appreciate those comments very much. Any other comments by the board member? Okay. Next, we have citizens' comments. Citizens' comments. Thank you. No citizens' comments. In-person comments, we don't have any. Call-in comments. I think that Ms. Vargas is working on that.
There are none.
There are none. Our upcoming meetings are scheduled for June 14th, 2022, and July 12th, 2022. Is there a motion to adjourn? Support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same as sign. Thank you so much and good evening.